Let's create our own space where we can speak our minds, and we also can help to shape the direction of conversation. So I commend y'all for doing that. That's very important. And I wish that at 26 I would have thought like that. Yeah, at 26 I was writing cover stories for Vibe magazine, but guess what? I didn't own Vibe magazine. That's the big difference. Number two, information is power. You know, I can't say this enough. We gotta read, we gotta read, we gotta read, we gotta study. We gotta know what's going on in the world. It's cool if you know who 2 Chainz is, and you know who Breezy is, and Weezy, and Dreezy, and all the folks. I'm a hip-hop head for life. I grew up a b-boy. I was a graph writer for many years. I was one of the cats who helped to build Vibe magazine from the ground up. So hip-hop is my life. I know it inside out. This is my culture, you feel what I'm saying? But at the same time, I also read Shakespeare. I read Howard Zinn. I read historical books. I watch documentaries. I go to art galleries. I travel around the country. I travel overseas. And the point I'm making is that, and I listen to all kinds of music. It ain't just Tupac or Drake or anyone like that. I also make sure I listen to Miles Davis and Sarah Vaughan and Ella Fitzgerald. And so we gotta take education seriously. Information as power seriously. And education is not just going to school, because anyone can have a college degree. That ain't impressing me at this point. But it is, are you a critical thinker, and do you understand that reading and studying is as important as eating food? And if you don't feed your body, we know what happens. You start to deteriorate. So imagine if you don't feed your mind on a regular basis. And when you start to do that, you begin to realize, wait a minute, okay, there's a whole history here around voting. You know, there's a whole history in this country of people being denied basic civil rights. And so there were people who sacrificed their lives literally, with names like Malcolm X and Dr. King and Fannie Hamer and Ella Baker, you know, so that we could have some basic rights. And it's not just about voting, because voting is not freedom by itself. It's also understanding that I need to be involved in organizations in my community, or start an organization, or start a blog space that's going to share information with people so that, as you put it, they can be liberated. That's the point of all of this.
Okay. What do you think hip-hop's voice has been during this election campaign? Do you feel like it's played a big enough part as it did during Barack's first run, or is it kind of not as strong as it was?
I can say this. I'm a hip-hop head. You know, I can say this because I've been in this game a long time. It saddens me that we're not as active as we should have been. You know what I mean? I love the fact that 2 Chainz and some other folks are involved in get out the vote stuff, like what I'm here for today here in Charlotte. But you know, it can't just be every 4 years when there's a presidential election. What we really need hip hop artists to do is in the tradition of what Paul Robeson did, this tradition of what Nina Simone did, the tradition of what Bob Marley did down in Jamaica, you know, what Fela did in Africa and Nigeria, which is, my life is going to be dedicated to making sure I use my music, my culture, you know, to uplift people. Not every song has to be positive and about bringing people together, but as Nas said on an album a few years back, at least have one song that's saying something, you know what I mean? And unfortunately, you know, a lot of us are just partying and BSing and drinking and disrespecting women and girls and disrespecting each other by the overuse of the N-word. And it's like this kind of dumbing down that's been happening that has absolutely nothing to do with the empowerment of our people. Okay. And let me say this, it's not necessarily the complete fault of the artists, it's the system. The educational system, the power structure that wants to see some folks not get ahead. And so what better way to dumb people down than to penetrate their culture, their music, and make you think that this is the only thing that blackness is. And we know blackness is more than that.
That's good. I know you have written a lot of works on black men specifically. Yes. Charlotte, I'm from the Charlotte area.
Yes, sir.
And
much love to Charlotte.
And I'm real kind of close with the atmosphere of their general feeling on politics and even the DNC itself. Once again, we're here with Kevin Powell, and this question is directed to the black men specifically, trying to find their role, their voice as far as politics, and even some in life. What's some encouraging words that you can give as far as the roles that we should be seeking in America? You know, some things you can do to help find your role in life, maybe even politics, from Mr. Kevin Powell. So.
Well, let me say this specifically to the heads in Charlotte for a second. I know some of y'all are upset about, you know, the Democratic National Convention coming here, how it's causing traffic havoc. You know, people are upset about lack of job opportunities. But, you know, one of the things I will say is that I've noticed a lot of our progressive white sisters and brothers have showed up here. They're doing their own alternative conventions and stuff like that. Nothing is stopping black people, or black males specifically, saying, I want to organize something that's going to make sure my voice is heard here in Charlotte. That's number one, you know. So the worst thing we can do, and it's important, we should put our voices out there and say this is not right, but then the next thing is like, what am I actually going to do? And then number two, brothers, I want y'all to read. There's a book that I put out called The Black Male Handbook, and it has advice about spirituality, about politics, about financial literacy, about health and wellness. There's a reading list in the back, a film and documentary list, because I really think that, you know, a lot of the answers, again, that we're looking for are in books. We just got to be willing to read books. And then the next thing, brothers, is that, you know, hip-hop is this great organizing tool, you know. it can be used in a way to galvanize us. We just got to do it. No one's stopping us from doing it. In New York City, for example, we used to, over several years, we had monthly black male workshops in Brooklyn. You know what I mean? No one's stopping us from saying, okay, brothers, here in Charlotte, no matter what your background, be you a college grad or you got a GED, be you an Alpha or Kappa, be you a brother who's a Blood or a Crip, whatever you are, some of us have got to take the leadership and say, I'm going to start bringing together all these different black males so we can talk about black male issues, but also come up with solutions how we can empower each other. And I think y'all should also challenge any churches that you go to. Like I went to a church this morning that I love because they had a men's ministry and they actually were doing stuff for the men. I always take note of that. If I see these brothers in the church, is there a black ministry that's actually doing anything with these black men? Or is this they just coming together to read the Bible? You know what I mean? And so let's make sure in any spaces that you see black males gathered, what are we doing? Not just hip hop, not just basketball and sports, but are we actually talking about real substantive issues? And brothers got to realize that the leadership that you're waiting for is you. You know what I mean? No one can do this for you. And I always say, if nothing else, look at the story of Malcolm X, how this brother, as you know, in prison with the A for education, could barely read his own handwriting, started reading the dictionary starting with the letter A, the word aardvark. And if he could transform his life, in that way, that says anything is possible. You know what I mean? And then the last thing I'm going to say, because this is important, manhood should be about nonviolence, peace, and love. I don't care what we see in the videos at this point. I don't care what we hear on the radio on a regular basis. You are not a man if you disrespect women in any way, shape, or form. If you think it's okay to call yourself or anyone NIGGAs, that's not manhood to me. That's basically saying that you got a slave mentality and that you don't even realize that, that mindset that was put on us during slavery was literally passed like a baton in a relay race from generation to generation. So many of us got to begin to free ourselves and empower ourselves, and it's got to come from knowledge of self. It's real simple.
Well, thanks a lot. There it is, Kevin Powell, ABlack with ABlackTV.
Thank you.